Hello, everyone. I'm Chris from HC Media, here again with another episode of Stay at Home Studio. Today, I'm excited to have our HC Media volunteer and former host, co-host of the Behavioral Journal, who's also is it marketing representative for the
Yeah,
Eagle
that
Tribune?
works.
Yeah,
Sure.
marketing, Dave Schultz. We'll just get right to your name. Everybody knows who you are, or at least they should. So, Dave, there's a lot going on right now. Obviously, we're all locked up at home. We can't really go anywhere or do anything. As a person who works for a news outlet, can you talk a little bit about what that's been like, having a pandemic and having kind of like these lockdowns in place? How has that affected your job, or how has it changed it?
It's being in advertising. It's been difficult because a good chunk of the businesses out there are closed, or the ones that aren't closed, even like restaurants and stuff like that. It's difficult for them because they can only certainly do takeout and delivery and things like that. It's been nice working for a newspaper. I think primarily because they are essential, and I think in great respect, learn on with things like this how the public kind of relies on the local news media to keep them updated on things like when the schools will open, even like the count of like who, how many people in town have been tested positive for the virus and keeping updates on with the mayor, any changes the mayor is making to regulations and things like that. So it's made my job more difficult, and it's been interesting at the Eagle Tribune because what they at first what they started to do was they only had like partial staff, so I would be in the office like 1 or 2 days a week, and then the days I was out, two of my colleagues would be in there. So there'd be people in the office, but it'd be kind of like circulating, so there weren't a whole bunch of us at the same time. I think keeping on the social distancing thing. Now, I think from what I understand, the lion's share of us are home, working out of our office, and most of us now we can't even go out and see people. So it's mostly, yeah, email, texting, phone calls, just trying to keep in touch with local businesses and local community leaders, and just sympathize and see if there's anything we can do for them. So
Yeah, so media is under fire a lot, obviously, from the community, from the government. I mean, it seems to be just this never ending battle. Now, do you experience that at all day to day? And is it magnified by something like this pandemic?
um, I don't think I think that local media, for the most part, we are excluded from the wrath of the people that are like, oh, you can't trust the media, and the Donald Trump thing about how they're the enemy of the state and things like that. Um, I think we are excluded from that. There was a little bit of some political leaders and community leaders and businesses have good or bad perceptions of the Eagle Tribune, but I think it's always been that way. I think people know that a local newspaper like the Eagle Tribune is something you can at least rely on and count on it as being fair, and as being, people that are entrenched in the community like Mike LaBella and Bill Cantwell and people like that. So
Yeah, and that's obviously hopeful news. You want to hear that coming, and I agree with you. Local media is sort of treated differently, and that's a good thing. Local media is something that's really, really important. Would you agree, obviously?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's one of those things that's funny. People like when I say, oh, I don't, don't read the paper, or there's nothing in it, things like that. But if you point out to them, like, not the coronavirus so much, but a year ago with the Columbia gas explosion and stuff like that, we were really the only source that kept people updated, whether it was on eagletribune.com or in the paper itself. Because even like Channel 5 with other coverage, stuff like that, they didn't have the details or the in-depth coverage that we did. And we're the only people set up to do that kind of thing. So it's kind of cool working for a company that has that kind of like uh, essentialness or power in the community. So
So, how does something like this happen? Like, this is obviously unexpected. It took everybody by surprise. How does the media, in your view, sort of pick up where they left off and continue doing their job when they can't go out?
um, I think we're fortunate that um, the reporters and on the editorial side of things, they still have to be out there doing their job. They still are out there I think a lot of them are trying to work as best they can from home, but they still have to be out there kind of on the front lines to get the stories and to talk to people and everything like that. And we are a strong enough organization that, I mean, I suppose as long as the thing doesn't go for a year, um, there, there's no indication, or do I feel there's any possibility the Eagle Tribune won't continue printing, because I think they know their importance in in the community, and important to get the paper out every single day. And except for Christmas Day every year, we publish every single day, no matter what. So, and I think they feel that responsibility in the community. I know, hearing from the publisher, and things like that on a fairly regular basis internally. That's her mandate, that no matter what, we're going to keep publishing a paper, even if there's probably an issue that doesn't have any advertising in it. But we've been fortunate there too, because we do have some regular advertisers, niche advertisers that still that are still hanging with us, or still doing business because they're still out there. They need to advertise. So.
What are some of the positive things you've seen? And this is kind of maybe putting you on the spot to think of something, but what are some of the positive things that you've seen through your network of other reporters, and maybe just doing what you do at the Tribune since this pandemic has started? Have there been any uplifting stories that have come down the pike, or have there been any ways that you've all come together and kind of navigated this? What's some thoughts on that?
I, I think the best thing that I've seen, and it's something that I think I've seen before, but in a situation like this, it really comes, it's really magnified, is how different community groups and different community leaders are doing things to keep keep the city moving forward in a positive direction. Things like Haverhill Promise with their readership. I forget what it's called, but they had a readership program for kids to continue reading, and it's a reader challenge that was going on when this thing first started. And seeing the stuff that you guys are doing in HC Media with the on the education channel, with the school programmings and stuff like that, with the school system, and I just think it's been. I think things like that are very positive. Or even like this I'm saying past weekend, but I don't know when this thing airs, it may be 2 weeks ago, but with the teddy bear thing that was done through Welcome to Haverhill, and we promoted in my town as well, where people were just putting teddy bears up on their windows or on their porches for a weekend, and people could drive around the cities with their family and find the teddy bears, just for a fun thing for families to do. And it was a pretty remarkable turnout. Like 300 homes had teddy bears in their windows or on their front porches. So I think things like that are kind of inspiring. I'm a big believer in in community organizations and community groups and leaders working together on things like that. So.
No, that's really great, and I hadn't even heard of some of those, so I'll have to check those out. Uh, are there ways that the community, kind of at large, can help you do your job better or more effectively? And especially in times like this, like, what can the community do to help your job go smoother?
I guess just pay attention to the newspaper itself, and realize that it is that the Eagle Tribune, and to a smaller extent the Haverhill Gazette, or my town Haverhill publication, um, have a relevance in the community. And yeah, I think the more they pay attention to that, the more people give relevance to the newspaper industry, I think the better. That makes it better for me. So, because the more people that are reading, the more people that are paying attention, then the better businesses will do who advertise with us, and so on. So it's that's as far as the community itself. I think that's the best. That's the I think the most important thing.
Yeah. I'm curious if, do you think that this will change, this sort of pandemic, this outbreak, if you will? And I'm talking about this a lot because it's obviously at the forefront of everybody's mind. But do you think that this will change the future of media or how our news is received? Because especially dwelling or counting on something like local news to deliver this kind of thing, because this is obviously something that came out of nowhere. It changed our lives instantly.
Mm.
And so how do you think that will affect media going forward?
I hope the one thing that it will do is, I hope it will make people understand the importance of the news media, that we aren't the enemy of the state, going back to that theme. But I think it will make people realize that having a local news source, or having just and trusting in that news source, that, yep, there may be times when they get a story wrong, or there's an editorial that they don't particularly like, or anything like that, but know that this is These are regular people like an Alison Corneau going out there and just doing her job and reporting and getting the story right as best she can. And that is um, a valuable resource for any community. And I really hope that that's what comes out of this, that there's value put on local news media. So that's I hope that's what comes out of it. I don't know if it will, but I kind of hope it will. As far as anything else goes, um, I hope it doesn't distract from the print publication, because I think in this time there are probably more people that are sourcing us online and things like that, which is wonderful. But we still need the print publication to do well too. So
And you talk about trust, which is a really good topic to kind of bring up and kind of maybe expand on a little bit. Trust is obviously something that we put a lot into our media. We want to know that what we're hearing is fact checked and true, because there's a lot of, misinformation out there, right?
mm,
And people get their news from things like Facebook and Twitter, and those aren't always
right,
reliable, right? A
right,
meme is not going to give you your news.
right.
So how is that trust earned, in your opinion? Like, have you seen how does a media outlet like a newspaper, how do they earn that trust over time?
I think they earn the trust by doing just kind of what you said there. They make sure that the editors are making sure that the reporters are um, diligent, and they check them, and they make sure that the stories are correct to the best of their ability. Like I said, sometimes there's probably things that aren't, you know, there may be a mistake made or things like that. But for the most part, I think you can count on that they're going to have the stories right. And I think that's just what it is in the long run. Even if somebody says, oh, that can't be true, I think in the long run you'll find, especially with a local publication, that the stories are correct, that the stories are right and they're factual, and that it's the important information. And I think even to some extent, there are stories that may come out that you may see on Facebook or something posting something early, and that the Trib, because it is a print publication, may not have it till the next morning, or digitally they may not have it online till like later that night. Um, but that's in part because they're making sure they get the story straight. They don't want to publish something happened in downtown Haverhill and then find out that it was wrong the next day. So that's one of those things that I think that people count on. When it's in the paper, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be true. So
Let's change gears a little bit.
okay.
What is the most fun or most enjoyable part of your job that you do, and maybe what is the most challenging thing, maybe the thing you have the most difficult time with?
um,
I'm really curious.
I think the most fun thing, I think, is just going out and meeting people, because I like um, it isn't initially the meeting people. I like working with people that I've known for a while and that I get along with, and putting advertising or marketing campaigns together for them. And I like doing promotions. I like putting an idea together and having people just flock to it, I guess. um, the most difficult thing for me is probably having to be in the office, because I'd much rather be out on the road and out seeing people and out talking to people, and doing things like that. I don't like sitting in the office and doing paperwork or entering orders or doing things like that. I'd much rather be out and about and talking to people. So
What is something you'd say you've learned by going out and talking to people, like that you didn't know before you were doing this job? Like, what did you learn about the people that you talk to? What did you learn about how they receive and interpret their news? What are some things you've experienced going out and having boots on the ground and learning about the community?
um, well, keep in mind, I've been doing this a long time, even prior to the Trib, working for newspaper publications and things like that. I think actually the biggest thing that I've learned, but I've also known this for a while, is how um, most businesses that I deal with, I don't deal a lot with like corporations or things like that. Um, Most of the business owners you run into are regular people. I mean, they're just, they may own a restaurant, they may own a landscaping company, they may own even a small chain of salons or something like that, but they're still just regular people. They're just like you and I, except that they've got a different job and they happen to be business owners. And I think too, I've learned that that is um, don't know if different mentality is the right word, but I know that's something I couldn't do. I know how to help them market things. I know how to help to get attention to their business, but I know I couldn't do it. It's just something I've kind of learned about myself over the years. And so I look at that and go, I think that's pretty, pretty amazing. But I also know if you talk to a lot of them, they would say they don't have any idea how I do my job. So it's, so, you know, but I think
Eh,
that's that they're just, for the most part, business owners are regular people. They just happen to own a business. So
That's kind of the answer I was assuming you'd come up with, because I appreciate that. That's one of the reasons I asked. I appreciate that there are reporters out there, or people like you who work in media that appreciate the normalcy of just the regular person who's going to work 9 to 5 and just trying to get by, and the real stories sometimes that make news are there. Hearing other people's stories, like you said, that's the highlight of your job. So
yeah,
yeah.
everyone has a story.
Mm-hmm. What's the best way to get media out there? Like, because obviously there's a number of ways. Do you think that the print form of media is going away and people are moving to more video oriented, or I don't know, one line type deals? Like, what is changing in your opinion, and what will maybe stay the same?
I I hope it doesn't go away, because I don't know if print media and newspapers go away. I don't know then what is. Um, there's something to be said for reporters on the ground investigating a story and doing something. I'm not really sure where we go for reliable news sources if there's no longer print media. And I know that there's talk that, that for a long time now, there's been talk that the newspapers are a dying industry and stuff like that. I think that one thing that people don't realize and I can't speak for the Washington Post or the New York Times, but I know as far as like we're concerned, yep, our circulation numbers for the print publication are down from what they were 10 years ago. But if you combine that, if you look at us as like a news entity, if you combine the people that are checking us out online and the people that are still subscribing to the paper, which is like 20,000 people, 20,000 homes a day, um, we have more readers than we've ever had. I'm saying that for somebody who's only been there for 2 years too, but I know it's like, I think that's something that people don't realize, because they go, oh yeah, your circulation is down. Well, print it is, but it's, but combine our digital and the print. No, actually, we probably have more people reading us than ever before. So I hope that print doesn't go away, because then I think we've lost a reliable news source there. And I would be fearful of a country that was relying totally on what they found on the internet for their news, because then I think we would just be, devolve into chaos, I guess, I think is what I'd be afraid of. So
What did you do before this job? I don't know if I know.
I've pretty much always been some form of advertising. Prior to this, I worked for a marketing company. I did mostly direct mail, but we also did signage and things like that. And then before that, I worked for community newspapers and the Boston Herald and the Lynn Item. And then before that, I was in college. So, so I pretty
So
much worked for newspapers, except a brief 10-year stint at a marketing company. So
and so compared to that, how is it different now in your current position? Is it do you have a lot of crossover from your previous work that you can bring into your current position?
absolutely. Oh yeah. I think that's one of the things. I have never thought of myself as a particularly good salesman. So but I do build good relationships. And so I have businesses that people that I've worked with and done advertising and marketing for, that this is now the third company that they've been with me. I did ads with them when I was with the North Andover Citizen. They did ads with me when I was at Spectrum Marketing, and now they do ads with me when I was at the Eagle Tribune. So it's kind of like, I like keeping that. And I also like that I've known some business owners out there for close to 30 years. It's a lot of fun, because I've seen their kids grow. I know, that they've, so things like that. It's all about the relationship. And I think that's what I like best about it anyway, is the relationships that I build with people. So
That's awesome, and I think that's really important. It's all about relationships. Whatever your job is, you always have to work with people in some way. And your job is particularly challenging because you're marketing and you're doing, you're working around reporters. So there's a lot of challenges to navigate. So I have another quick question, sort of in the minutes we have left. you've been involved with HC Media for a number of years. I think I taught your class that
You did teach my friend.
Okay.
You did.
And then your kids have both been involved, and then
Yeah.
Zoe, your daughter, has been coming and is a member and is pretty active there as well.
Yeah.
What have you learned about community media through working with HC Media, and what have you taken, if anything, from working with HC Media on the journal, doing your own pieces? What have you learned and then brought back to your day-to-day job?
I think what I've learned and what I've really grown to appreciate is how well different medias can work together. Having the newspaper and the social media aspect of it, and then the HC Media, the broadcast portion of it, they work really well together when you're able to tie them all together in one thing. I also have learned that it's amazing when you are in front of the camera and you do a few things. It's amazing how many times I'll be at the grocery store, I'll be at Market Basket, and some people come up to me and go, "You did the Thanksgiving parade." I was like, "Yep, that was yes." Yep. I actually had a woman the other night, actually her daughter say, "Hey, I know you." And I said, "Oh, yeah." And I recognized her from, around the neighborhood and stuff like that. And her mother was like, "How do you know him?" Looking at me strangely. And she said, "He does that show with Lindsay Paris." And I was like, "Oh my God."
That is great. It's always fun getting recognized from an HC Media production.
It's a really nice boost to my ego. Yeah.
For sure. And I appreciate you sharing that. I think that it's been absolutely a pleasure working with you and your kids on various projects and watching you grow, because you've done a lot of independent projects and they've come out great. So yeah, of course. So I guess in the last minute that we have here, again, thank you for your time today. What is it that you personally, what's important to you as far as getting your media, getting your news? How do you, off the clock, away from your desk, why is it important to you to stay dialed in, and how do you do that? Give us some pointers into your insightful way.
I personally am. I try to, and I haven't been in any, like, I've lived in Haverhill now for 20 plus years. I've really, in the past couple of years, primarily since coming to the Eagle Tribune, I've become really invested in the city of Haverhill. I've always loved the city, but I've really become invested and tried to be more active. Now, I'm not a meeting person, but I've tried to become more active with HC Media. I keep in touch with people like Jenny Arndt and Jeff Grassi and people like that who are also active in the community. And I think that the different community organizations, different community leaders, I have found that they are a great resource just to get a pulse on what's going on around town. On top of, like, the Eagle Tribune gives you the news and the things that are going on there, but to get a real pulse on the city, I think that's what I've learned, that's where I go to. I try to be, just be in touch with those people. And even if it's just like shooting the blunt with them at the farmer's market, stuff like that, it's amazing the things you can learn. So I guess that's where I get, that's my source of energy. And that's
the Shultz advice there.
Yeah. So
awesome. Well, David, thank you for your time. And, we've learned a lot about the importance of media, especially during something like a crisis, like this, where we really have to rely on trustworthy, sources to help us make the right decisions. And I'm appreciative of people like you who are willing to talk about that and open up about it. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And if you're watching this later, you can view more of these stay-at-home studio episodes on haverhillcommunitytv.org and also on Channel 22 in Haverhill. And I want to wish everybody well, and we'll see you next time.